Hello fellow riders, today I'm bringing you a video helping you to familiarize yourself with the Altmost test that is performed in many states throughout the US and is the test which determines whether or not you get your motorcycle endorsement. This video is mainly for Washington State, but is similar throughout other states that use the alternate most test. The first thing you want to do is go and get your rider's permit. This can be done at any of your Department of Licensing offices, and you just take a simple written test, and once you pass that, you get your learner's permit. That learner's permit enables you to practice on your motorcycle without a passenger and during daylight hours. This permit is good for 90 days, and this will enable you to get out there, get some practice, and familiarize yourself with street riding. I also recommend that while you have this permit, get online and take a look and see what safety courses are offered throughout your area. There's usually a link on your Department of Licensing website that has official recommended safety and training courses. These courses are a great way to brush up your skills. There's courses for beginners, intermediate, and advanced, so take a look around and find the course that's right for you. These are highly recommended. Okay, now that we got that out of the way, let's take a look at the very first possible deduction, which is stalling during any exercise. Basically, if you stall your bike, you will have points deducted. Now, there are a total 100 points that you can get on this test. A passing grade is 80 or above. So let's take a look at how stalling will affect your points. If you stall one time, 2 points will be deducted. If you stall twice, 6 points are going to be deducted from your score. If you stall 3 times, 10 points will come off your score. Keep in mind that you can fail any one of these individual tests and still pass with a passing grade of 80 or more. So let's not get too hung up on something that you're not particularly good at. Just practice as much as you can. If for some reason you don't pass that part of the test, it doesn't mean you fail the complete test. Okay, here we have the sharp turn and stop at the end. You can see on the bottom right there is a T that you'll line your motorcycle tire up with, and that is where you begin. So we start at the T, we go to the end of the track, slow down, take a left-hand turn there, stay within the lines, come down to the end of the track here, and you want to stop your front wheel inside of this box, which is 3 feet by 5 feet. Make sure when you stop in there, your tire is not on the line. This might take a little bit of practice because a lot of people don't know exactly where their front tire is stopping. So do a little practicing, get to know where your tire is actually stopping, and this will be a cinch for you. The left-hand turn, it's a pretty wide box. Just slow down, ease into that left-hand turn, and you should be fine. Now let's take a look and see how this one's scored. There's 2 scores on this. If you drive out of the path of that left-hand turn, points are deducted, and also if you put your foot down during that turn, points are deducted. So putting your foot down will cost you 2 points. Hitting the lines will cost you 6 points, 10 points if you hit both lines. Now remember, this first run incorporates 2 different skill tests. One was the sharp turn that we just looked at. The next one is the normal stop. This is where you come to a gentle stop with your front wheel inside of the square box. Now let's take a look and see how this one's graded. Okay, first off, this needs to be a nice, slow, steady stop. So if you skid your front or rear tire while doing the stop, there's a 6-point deduction. Now the most important part is knowing where your front tire is. Get out there and practice. Go to an empty parking lot at a church, grocery store. Practice stopping with your front wheel touching one of the parking lines. Once you get familiar with where your front tire is actually located, this one's going to be an easy one. Unfortunately, you stop on the line or outside of the box, there's a 10-point deduction on this. So Once again, practice, practice, practice. Okay, now let's take a look at the dreaded cone weave. Everyone seems to be scared of this one, but believe it or not, it's not all that hard, and if you mess up, it doesn't mean you fail the test. It just means that a few points are deducted, just like any other test that we're doing today. Okay, so on this test, there are two parts. There's the cone weave itself, and then you go around the bend and you come back to this side of the track and you do your U-turn. On the cone weave, these cones are spaced 12 feet apart, and they're also spaced 2 feet from left to right. Now, I was just like you, really worried about this test, so I went out and practiced. Here's what I found worked best for me. Instead of putting your tire directly in the middle of the tee, go ahead and scoot it over to the left to the edge of the tee. The instructor will let you do this. That gives you a little bit extra room on the first turn, which makes a world of difference by the time you get down to the end. So basically you start to the left and go around the cones as shown. Next you go around this bend here and come down to this side of the track where you will do your U-turn. Just take it nice and slow. If you have a 500cc bike or smaller, you have to do it within 20 feet. If you have a 500cc or larger, you get 24 feet to do this U-turn. Pretty easy. Just give it a little bit of practice. Use your right brake or your rear brake, and you'll see that helps you a lot if you're making a wide turn. Now let's take a look at the scoring on the cone weave. If your tire skips the cone or you hit one of the cones, you're penalized with points. And also, if you put your foot down at any time during this test, the points will be deducted. Let's take a look at the points that are deducted here. For skipping a cone, the first one is 6 points, next one is 10 points. Same with putting your foot down. If you put your foot down once, it's 6 points. Put it down twice, it's 10 points. Pretty simple stuff. This is one I even messed up on my test and accidentally put my foot down on the very last cone. Took 6 points off my score, but I still passed with flying colors. So don't worry about messing up on any of these. It happens. It happened to most everyone that I saw take the test as well. Just go ahead and breathe, relax, and try and get some practice before you go in there. A lot of the driver's licensing offices will tell you where their track is, and they'll let you practice on it, so you know what you're doing when you come into the test. One last piece of advice for the cone weave is to not look down at the cones. This seems to be a surefire way for most people to either run over a cone or have to put their foot down. Just like with any other riding, head and eyes forward where you're heading. Don't look down at the cones, and you should do alright on this. Now we'll take a look at the scoring for the second part of this test, which is a U-turn. You're scored on the path that you take, if you hit the lines or not, and you're also scored whether or not you put your foot down during the U-turn. Each of these will cost you 10 points. If you take up too much room on your U-turn and hit the lines, 10 points are deducted, and if you put your foot down during the U-turn, 10 points is also deducted. So once again, practice, practice. So now we're going to take a look at the quick stop. Basically, you start at one end of the track at the T down at the bottom that you see, and then there's an acceleration zone. During this acceleration zone, you need to get in between 12 and 20 miles per hour. Once you get to that speed, you hold it steady. Now that's when you come into the timing zone. You want to keep a steady miles per hour through this zone. And this is where the instructor will use his stopwatch to time and see how long it takes you to get through the timing zone. This is one of those tests that's kind of hard to time yourself and see how well you're doing. So basically what you want to do is just practice your quick stops. Use both brakes, and the key to this is a steady, slow, gradual pull on the front brake. You don't want to jerk it. You want to get the bike inertia to kind of lean into the stop and then slowly squeeze on the front brake. This also takes practice, but it's very key to your safety. Doing these quick stops is something that you should practice all the time. Now, on the slow stop, you weren't allowed to skid. Here, skidding your rear tire is acceptable and will not cause any points to be deducted from your score. Now, I'll try to explain the timing process as well as I can. Basically, the instructor will use a stopwatch to measure how long it takes you to get from the beginning of the timing zone to the end. So if you take 2 seconds to get from the beginning of the timing zone to the end of the timing zone, that estimates your speed to be 15 miles per hour. Now if you take 2.5 seconds to get from the beginning of the timing zone to the end, they estimate that you are going 12 miles an hour, which is the minimum. On the other end of the spectrum, if you get there in 1.5 seconds, you're doing 20 miles per hour. And here in just 1 second, I'll show you a chart that will list all the speeds from 12 to 20 miles per hour and how long in seconds that should take you to get through the timing zone. Now at the end of the track, there are several marks that measure distance. Depending on where your front tire stops is how many feet you have traveled during your stop. The graph that I'll show you here in just a moment will tell you that if you were riding 17 miles per hour, you should stop within 16 feet. For example, I'm on a 800 plus pound bike and I was traveling at 17 miles per hour because my time speed through the timing zone was 1.84 seconds. So at the graph, you look at 1.84 seconds, which means that I'm doing 17 miles per hour. I should stop within 16 feet. I did it in 13. This is an easy one, just a little bit of practice, and you should be okay. If you don't end up going 12 miles an hour or you go over 20 miles an hour, they'll let you re-ride this one time. So practice on getting that speed up to the timing zone and then holding it steady until you hit the brake zone. Now here's how this one's graded. If you were doing 13 miles per hour, you'd be required to stop within 10 feet. If you were to stop at 11 feet, that would be 2 points deducted from your total score. Every foot that you go over your required distance to stop is 2 points. So once again, if you were required to stop within 10 feet and you ended up stopping at 15 feet, that would be 5 feet over the maximum stopping distance. At 2 points apiece, that would be 10 points deducted. Now we're going to take a look at the obstacle turn. This is also called the weave or the swerve. Basically, it's a test to determine whether or not you can get out of the way of debris in the road, say a pothole or a rock comes into your path. They want to make sure you can swerve around it safely at a decent speed. So let's go ahead and take a look at the track here. If it looks familiar, it's because it's the same exact path that you took to do your quick stop. The difference being that as soon as you exit the timing zone, you're going to want to make your swerve at this point. The speed requirements are the same as they were on the quick stop. You need to get between 12 and 20 miles per hour and hold that steady through the timing zone. As soon as you exit the timing zone, you'll want to make your swerve. On my course, they asked me to swerve to the right. They might ask you to do it to the left in different areas, so practice both ways. The horizontal red line you need to go to the right of, and then you will need to straighten your path and proceed forward without touching the vertical red line to your right. Once again, a pretty easy one once you get a little bit of practice. A quick counter steer and a lean will make this one easy for you. Now that we've looked at the obstacle turn, let's take a look and see how it's scored. The scoring on this test is pretty straightforward. You basically just have to keep your tires off of both of the red lines at the end of the path. The only addition to that is that they do measure your speed through the timing zone, and you have to get between 12 and 20 miles per hour when you do this test. Once again, here's the graph showing how long it takes you to get through the timing zone and how that in turn tells the instructor how fast you're going. If by chance you don't make it over 12 miles per hour or under 20, you'll have one chance to retake this portion of the course. If you're under 12 miles per hour, the next time you go through, it's an automatic fail for this portion of the test, which is a big one at 10 points. 10 points are also deducted if your tires hit any of the red lines at the end of the path. Now don't forget, you can fail any one of these tests individually and still get your endorsement and pass your test. A perfect score is 100. Say at the end of this test you hit one of the red lines, that'll be a 10-point deduction, so you still have a 90%, which is passing. An 80% is a passing score on this test, so you have 20 points that can be deducted and you will still pass your test. Now we'll look at the 4 ways that you can fail this test. Obviously, there's a point accumulation that we just spoke about. If you have more than 20 points deducted from your overall score, you'll fail the test and you'll have to retake it again the next week. The second way you can fail this test is if you drop your bike. Doing so is an automatic disqualification and you'll have to retake the test at a later time. The third way to fail this test is to perform a dangerous action. So let's not pull any wheelies while we're taking the test and you should be okay. The final way to fail the test is failure to perform. And I was told by my instructor that say you're doing the cone weave and you just completely miss it and you put your foot down and you just did horrible and you stop. If you stop during any one of these individual tests, that's a failure to perform and therefore the test is terminated. So my advice to you is if you're doing one of these maneuvers and you fail miserably, just keep riding on through it. Don't put your feet down or stop, because stopping during the test is unfortunately a failure to perform and the test is terminated. So there it is, folks. I hope this video has been helpful to you. Just knowing the way the course is laid out and how it's scored should be a great advantage for you and should help you really know what you're doing when you take that test. And hopefully you get in there, take the test, pass the first try, and go home with your endorsement. I spent a long time studying and looking all over the internet for something like this, and although I found bits and pieces, I didn't truly understand how the scoring worked. So I recommend that you do a little search on the internet, familiarize yourself as much as you can with the test. The Washington State DOL has 4 great videos that show you a little bit about the course and a few tips and tricks. So you can find these videos on the DOL website, or you could just do a YouTube search for motorcycle endorsements for Washington State. Again, thanks for watching. I hope this helped you, and please click like if you enjoyed this video. Thanks a lot.